Welcome to the Putback on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY's NBA insider, and we are here to talk things Knicks, NBA, all over the place, Lakers, Nuggets. We'll get into it all with a fantastic guest, Monica McNutt, ESPN basketball analyst, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. She's all over Carmelo's podcast and, of course, MSG Networks. And it's an honor to have you on the show, Monica. We are going to start like we always start with the baseline because last night, overtime game, Knicks playing the Celtics tough in a way they haven't played them the first 3 games of this season, still coming up on the short end there, and there's a lot to digest from that game. But Monica, I want to start here with you as a player. What do you think? End of game, end of regulation, what happened with OG? What do you think should have happened? Were you comfortable with what happened?
I was comfortable, Begley, and I catch heat for this amongst my NBA friends circles. Always foul. I was comfortable. I have always been one who was like, rely on your defense, play it out. I just think I get it in hindsight. Group text obviously buzzing, but I was okay with it. I was okay with it. I think you put yourself in a position to foul, you open yourself up to the free throw line and rebounds and I was okay with it. And Jason Tatum hit a hell of a shot. Like, you got to get a dude credit.
Yeah, you got I see tipping your cap on that one. I totally get that. And one thing I thought was interesting was Tom Thibodeau, we were asking him about it after the game, and he said, look, they were pushing the ball up. Tatum, obviously, dangerous player. And if a player has his back to the basket, he said he's comfortable fouling. But if he's facing the basket and ready to attack, it didn't sound like he wasn't as comfortable. And I thought that was an interesting explanation. Then you had OG Anunoby later on saying, yeah, I should have fouled, just kind of owning it. So, hindsight 2020, but that was a tough loss for the Knicks. What did you take away from that one?
Just one more thing on the foul thing, too.
Yeah, please.
How many times this year, not Knicks, but through the NBA, have we seen guys foul on a 3? Like, yeah. I get you, foul, but I'm okay with playing it out. I think there's a big time lesson learned from the Knicks, and I appreciate that nuance in Tibbs' answer because that does matter. It does matter where a guy's on the floor, how prone they are to try to get a shot up, and then you kind of are leaving it in the hands of the officials, which, again, I was okay with the play, and I know a lot of folks wanted to see a foul, but let's roll. Anyway, I'm sorry. What was the question?
No, I didn't even have one. You wanted to hit it again, which I appreciate. I do have a question, though, because Boston – OKC. I'm kind of curious about your NBA power rankings nationally. Where do you have Boston? Where do you have OKC? How do you see those two?
All right, so I will put Boston ahead of OKC purely off of experience. I do not think anything about OKC's performance this regular season is going to be limited to the regular season. I understand the conversation in the West, folks being willing to step up to that challenge if they feel like they've got more veteran teams, i.e. the Lakers and the Warriors, although last time I checked, I'm sure that both of them would like to be out of the 4 and 5 spot if they can avoid having a matchup with OKC in the second round. But I actually think that there is more fortitude and experience there than OKC is getting credit for. I also think people are forgetting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what he's done this year in terms of his numbers and his efficiency. He's doing that from the guard spot. I also, as you did, Begley, witnessed the way Isaiah Hartenstein can shift the dynamic for a team, both in terms of defense and as well as the personality. I enjoy talking to Mark Daigneault as much as any coach in the league as well. And so I just still would put OKC number 1, check the box for them to be in the conference finals in the Western Conference. I'm fairly confident that they're going to get out of the Western Conference. My husband has cautioned me, nothing can go chalk, but I just think OKC is legit. The edge that Boston has, though, is experience. In that, they have won a championship together. And how long did we talk about whether or not Tatum and Brown belong together? And could they get over the hump? So it's not as if last year's championship came just 3 years in, right? Like, these are guys 6+ years into their careers that finally got over the mountaintop. And so I think that collective experience, of course the championship, but even that collective experience and the equity that they have with one another, I would give them an edge.
Yeah, they've seen so much in those situations that you're not going to surprise them with anything. And I'm curious, Monica, we're talking about experience versus inexperience. Detroit, obviously fantastic regular season, a team the Knicks may see in the playoffs. Cade Cunningham doesn't strike me as somebody where the stage would be too big for him, but we're not talking just about Cade. We're talking about the whole group. How much do you think experience will matter for a team like Detroit in the playoffs?
That's different, right? That's like a pretty fresh group outside of some of their role guys. We're looking at Schroeder. But Beasley obviously has championship pedigree experience. Hardaway's been in some playoff series. Harris as well. I think experience is going to be a big deal. But I will say of this matchup, if I had to figure out how to skirt experience, right? I think my formula would be you make it ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit, that's what they've done all season. Right. They're going to play physical. They're going to find the mismatches. They're going to swing that ball, and their role players are shooting lights out. They have one another's back. To me, there is a OKC Thunder-esque quality, and when you talk about the chemistry of this young group that has basically house money and is proving to the world that they are turning the Detroit Pistons organization around. Now, OKC no longer has house money. There's pressure there, but it does remind me of some of those earlier OKC teams.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And if I'm the Knicks, I don't want to see Malik Beasley in my gym after the way he shot it in the regular season. But that's all.
Beyond that, though, Begley.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. But beyond that, too, I don't have an official stat in front of me, but I feel like Cade Cunningham has averaged 30 points against the Knicks.
Yeah.
Especially in the Garden.
Assists and rebounds. I mean, they've had a tough time with him. I mean, as most of the league. But, yeah, he is coming. Talked to a bunch of coaches from other teams, and they mentioned, like, look, he's going to be right there, all-star, all-NBA for a while if he stays healthy, because he's put it together and he's got the physical tools already. It's just fun to me to see when such a talented player takes it to that next level where you're seeing it night in and night out. And just to swing back to last night for a second, I thought Josh Hart, I really appreciate him being candid and sharing his thoughts with the media. I thought he had something interesting to say about how he didn't think that from players, coaches, everybody, there just wasn't the level of preparation ahead of that last play in the fourth where Tatum knocks the three down. And obviously, if people that don't know, you should know, Monica played at a very high level, played at Georgetown, fantastic player in her own right. So I want to ask from a player's perspective, like in those late game situations, what works in terms of communication, and how does it look? How does it flow when it works, and kind of what could kind of break down?
I love Josh. I think the city loves Josh. It is a perfect coincidence that he would earn the nickname Heart of the City, right? But I want to back it up a step, okay? Because I appreciate his accountability. That is who he is, to call himself up and to call his teammates up, so to speak. But I want to take a step back. They've been 0-3 against these guys and had not put together a 48-minute contest yet, right? Yeah. So you get to the 48-minute or 47 and 30, if you will, contest, and then you lose it toward the end. He is not wrong in that assessment. But I do think the answer to how you deal with those situations is experience in those situations. Mm-hmm. Competing with Boston based on this season's result, end to end, was a new experience. Mm-hmm. You follow me? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I think the steps maybe were not 1 and 1 equaling 2. But again, Jason Tatum hit a hell of a shot. Right. Yeah. And we get past that. That's a critical turnover in overtime. Right. And so, yes, hindsight is always going to be 20/20, and you're looking for ways to grow and to call yourself up and to improve. But I think to get stuck on that play is to do this team a little bit of a disservice to the progress that they actually showed in that matchup.
That's fair. And my coverage last night was definitely stuck on that play. So guilty as charged. But you're right. taking it from 30,000 feet too, like this was a game they were in. They lost to Boston by an average of 21 points the last 3 games.
Exactly.
And this is where if you're a Knicks fan, this is what you want to see. And yes, the execution late was not there, but the idea that they didn't get their doors blown off, and Jalen Brunson, to me, looked very good, not only scoring but distributing the ball. There are some positives to take from this one. You get hung up on that last play for sure, but bigger picture, I think this was a step forward for the Knicks. And
Yep.
Monica, just to step out of New York for a second, I really need to hear your thoughts on Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs, because it's a group that's been together in some playoff series, and they've had some success. Obviously, the Knicks took care of them a couple of years ago, but they've had some success together, not with Kenny Atkinson. And I'm just wondering there, how do you see them stacking up against the rest of the East and Boston?
So it's funny, Begley, as I'm getting a little long in the tooth in my NBA time, I can remember, I'm taking way back, the next straight, you add Kyrie, you add KD, Kenny Atkinson's out the door. Yeah. But I remember the team that Atkinson energized and had pushing in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
And so I think that was one of the first times for me that I was like, wait, this guy is good. And for me, it was the dose of the superstar treatment, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2025, the Cleveland Cavaliers are rolling. Atkinson didn't go and hide after that. Mind you, he was an assistant for the Warriors, one of the best organizations to do it, especially in the modern era. So there is a lot of depth there, not just as a head coach, but I also think, for me, I've always been a fan of players coaches, and he seems to be that with this group. I love JB Bickerstaff. I think he's great too, but as we've seen, when the voice kind of gets stale, organizations make a change, and that's okay. That's part of the NBA life cycle. Right. But I also think, and I was actually having this conversation this morning about MVP top 5. Mm-hmm. I don't know if people really appreciate, Tom Thibodeau does because he said it when the Knicks went to Cleveland. I don't know if people really appreciate Donovan Mitchell and what he's done this year. And not just from a statistical standpoint, but this is a dude who has had postseason success. They was rolling in Utah. They were always there. They were always in the conversation, and they couldn't get over the hump for whatever reason. And so he's a guy similar to Josh, very honest, very forthright when you have a chance to talk to him. And when the Knicks were in Cleveland earlier this year, we just chopped it a little bit. And he was pretty candid about him having to take a step back to evaluate what has worked for him to this point in his career and what has not. And we actually teed up the conversation because I pointed out that Tibbs used the word, it was either underappreciated or underrated. I can't remember pregame, but he used one of those words talking about the year that Mitchell was having. And so I think if you have a centerpiece who is willing to study when to call their number and when this team needs to play selfless, look at any of the stars, right? Even LeBron in this era. This is a different era of LeBron than eras past. He's now adopted when to be selfless and when to empower Luka, right? Mm-hmm. So I think when you got a superstar that grasps that this thing doesn't get done alone and is willing to study not just himself but his teammates, that as a seed is huge. The Knicks having in Jalen Brunson, that as your centerpiece is huge. Then beyond that, I don't know if people grasp how much the mouth injury rocked Darius Garland last year in terms of his strength, his confidence. He's playing great ball. Evan Mobley, when he got drafted, that was the first summer league that I worked. But I remember the way that he was discussed, right? It was sort of the conversation of what we've seen from Wemby before Wemby had really kind of hit American soil. The versatility, everybody was talking about the versatility, his size, his length, he's only going to get better. And so now all of these things are starting to come to fruition. I do think that it's a combination of what Atkinson has brought to the table, but also we're talking about young men, right? Give them a little time in the league, a chance to get their legs under them sincerely, and it has just clicked so well in terms of them as a group. The DeAndre Hunter thing could be your sixth man of the year. I think that's just such a great addition. Their depth is what's happening? And I can remember it was on the road early in the season. I'm like, is Cleveland real? Yeah, they're real.
Yep. I mean, Ty Jerome, great year too. It's the depth is certainly there. And, you hit on a couple of things I just want to expand on a little bit. Kenny Atkinson, you don't have to say it. I'll say it. The Stars wanted him out of there in Brooklyn. And so for whatever reason, that's the way they went. And I say that because I think, and I've heard, especially early on coming into the year, his communication with his stars, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, I'm sure others too, was very good. And I think it was important in terms of what you're seeing now with this group. And then, Evan Mobley, just a quick aside, it's funny how things can just change based on, decisions that get made or don't get made. There were people in Detroit that really loved Evan Mobley. wanted to take
Mhm.
Evan Mobley in that draft badly, and obviously they decided to go with Cade. But it's just funny thinking about how things could have changed in that Eastern Conference. Monica, I want to talk about you a little bit, please, if we can.
Okay.
Georgetown and then Maryland to study journalism, but people might assume differently. But you also grinded doing freelance work just to get a
Yes.
ton of experience to get to where you are today. How important? Like, I guess, what was your mindset then, just in trying
Bro,
to get to where you wanted to go?
Begley, bro, you're taking me back. I get randomly emotional talking about a couple of things. One being my parents. This guess is not random when it comes to my now husband, but three in that conversation is well, probably four because also my friends. But four is basketball, right? Like the game has given me so much in terms of the opportunity to literally build a life, like to see the world, to meet incredible people. But I also think my
That's very
experience
kind of
as
you, Monica, to say. I don't want to cut you off, but I am incredible. So,
oh, you, you are incredible for sure. The game has given me so much, and so I think for me, the game also taught me how to work because there was a season in my life where no sacrifice was too big in terms of me pursuing greatness in the game of basketball. And so when that curtain closed on that act as a player, wanting to get into media, I still had the measuring stick of my commitment to the game when I was a player. And so, gosh, it's all running together now. 2013, I think I finished my master's program. Um, 13 to smooth to 19, small networks, freelancing, layoffs, free work, all of it.
mm-hmm.
Um,
The whole thing.
you do it for the love, right? Like you
Yeah.
do it for the love and the belief that this thing is gonna pan out and I'm gonna have a life that I will be fortunate to call my job something that I truly enjoy. So man, it's one foot in front of the other and truly staying your course. Because if you get
Yeah.
hooked up trying to look side by side and see what other folks are doing, especially in this era, you really can mess yourself up.
Absolutely. And I'll never forget, I met you the first time in Las Vegas Summer League. I think
Yeah.
they had signed Julius Randle. We were covering
Yeah.
a practice in a Vegas gym, and we
Yep.
had talked maybe for 25 seconds. And I was like, she's going to be around and she's going to be on screens for a long time. I knew it. I knew it.
I appreciate that, Begley.
Yeah, it's easy to see because the one thing, I mean, out of many that I love when I can listen to you talk about the game is you can talk about maybe complex things happening on the floor in a way that the fan can understand and with an enthusiasm and a passion that comes across so easily whenever you're talking basketball. So I appreciate that. And it's always fun to listen
Thanks,
to you
Begley.
and my friend Tyler Murray
Yeah, that's my guy.
on the radio broadcast, man. You guys have good chemistry. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Monica, like I believe that it's important to you to leave your mark in this space, not only for yourself, but for others who may come behind you. And the idea that, having women having a big presence in media, is that something that has been on your radar, is on your radar? And if so, what are your thoughts on it?
It's on my radar, Begley, but it is also not something that consumes me.
Yeah.
Is that a fair answer? Right?
Yeah.
Like last month, March, Women's Empowerment Month, we celebrated at the Garden. Beautiful celebration. Had a chance to talk to a couple of different groups of young women. But I genuinely meant that it was also just Wednesday. Like you are an example of that. Like you were so kind and gracious as I was making my way in New York. My colleagues at MSG, Bill Pito, Alan Hahn, Wally Zerbiak, our terrific producer, James Questel, like Kevin Murata, Kevin Mindry. Like I could rattle off the names of the men that I work with, and I have never felt less than. And that's also, for the most part, the same at ESPN. Now, I think you got to be careful because that doesn't mean that I always nail it, right? There's room for feedback. I want to grow. I want folks to have honest relationships with me. But I have found and continue to find, even back to my playing days, the issue is not the actual athletes and the people that cover and love the game. The issue is the internet trolls and the people in their kitchens that, got everything to say, right?
Yeah.
Because game doesn't care about your gender, right? Preparation, being well prepared, doesn't care about your gender. And so I'm so thankful that I don't have horror stories in this space. Now, I totally hold space for women who may have had different experiences, but I hope to be a representation that it can be done, that it can be done in an honest way, and that if you keep moving one foot in front of the other and are moving with joy and kindness, because I do think it's a reciprocal space, man or woman, you can find your way.
I mean, I think that applies to almost everything you could want to do in life professionally. So thank you for sharing that your thoughts and your perspective on that. I need your perspective on one other thing. Carmelo Anthony, obviously you spend a lot of time with him on his podcast, on his show, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. He's got a new job and he's going to be analyzing the league. And I'm so excited just having covered him for a while and asked him questions. And I know he's fantastic with the media. How do you think he is going to be as an analyst on a national stage?
I'm going to come back to that, Begley. But first, were you here when he was here?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. When the first ballot Hall of Fame thing pops up, what did you think as someone that covered him here in New York?
I mean, look, I have my feelings on the Hall of Fame are a little complicated, but I'll say this. Okay. You look at Syracuse and you look at Team USA and just take those two things apart from the NBA, and that puts him in the Hall of Fame to me. Because it's not just an NBA Hall of Fame, it's a basketball Hall of Fame. And then, to me, the best scorer of his era and the beautiful way he played the game. There's no doubt that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. My issue with the basketball Hall of Fame, not to go off on a tangent.
Tell me, I want to know.
This is not to be disrespectful at all, and I have a lot of respect for what Paul George has done in his career. But if there's an argument about Paul George being a first ballot Hall of Famer, I think that speaks to the criteria being poor and the standards being too low. There's guys in there where it just takes the prestige away from the place to me, and there's nothing that can be done about it. It is what it is. But that's how I see it. What do you think about Carmelo?
We're gonna have to follow up on that at another time. You cracked open the can of worms a little bit. My first reaction was similar to his. I was like, already? Like, okay, good for him. I just think I remember, and I told him this on this week's episode of 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, Syracuse Carmelo Anthony, even though I ended up being a Georgetown girl, was one of the reasons why I fell in love with the game of basketball. That, I don't remember the years now, but when they went to the Final Four, Tennessee also went to the Final Four, Texas men were there, I think UConn women were probably there. I remember cutting out the clippings of the Washington Post and making a poster in my room. And it was all this orange stuff because of Syracuse and Tennessee. I remember going to the gym with my dad and we called it the Carmelo slide. It was a drill that we did in terms of being able to get a shot off at the mid-range and put a guy or put a defender on your shoulder and not be bothered by the physicality. And so he is a part of my love story with the game of basketball for sure. But I also smile because, it's funny because I am a member of the media today. I smiled because I also remember the noise that surrounded him, particularly as he was making his way as an NBA player. And again, as a media member today, while we only have today and it's tough to step back and admire the body of work, it just was, I don't want to say cautionary tale, but just to remember that the stories are still being written. You know what I mean? And and leave some room for growth, change, a plot twist, whatever it's going to be. But it's well deserved. I mean, 19 years in the NBA. You mentioned Team USA. You mentioned Syracuse. That's a dude that has done it all. And I think listening to him to talk about the announcement this week, first of all, I cannot wait for his speech in Springfield. But there is a gratitude and a graciousness about the experiences that the game has given him that I think is really dope.
I agree. I love how he talks about the game, his career, other players, especially on the show. I'm not surprised at all how good it's been. But now, give me your commentator analysis. Is he going to be hot takes? Is he going to be X's and O's? Is he going to be a little bit of both? I mean, he's got such a good personality. I can't see him doing the X's and O's breakdown every night. But what do you see?
So I'm kind of pressing our production team. I'm like, we need a real basketball show. We got to give the people a tease I also am trying to convince him to come through MSG for the postseason. We'll see what that happens. This is all Mon's wish list.
Come on, Carmelo.
What I have enjoyed talking ball with Melo is he processes the game quickly, but he delivers it very steady and very deliberately, similar to how he played, right? So when he's saying something, you're kind of like, what? And he's like, hold on. And then you're like, oh, okay. Like, you brought it home for me. And so I think the way he operates reminds me of Jamal Crawford, who called a few games for us on MSG networks this year. Terrific. Like, forgotten more basketball than most of us have played, right?
Right.
But both of them, to me, are still so in touch with the current generation of players, but they also firmly know their era of basketball and have tremendous respect for the guys that came up before them. The way that the two of them are able to blend all of that together with honest critique, but respectful of the work that guys are putting in, I think Melo's he's gonna get better as it goes because it's just about reps. But I do think that his voice is gonna be needed in this space, and I think it's one that will resonate well.
Yeah, I think like bridging eras for viewers, I think is a great point because young fans they didn't see it, they don't know about it. But if you're hearing someone with the gravitas of Carmelo Anthony talk about the guys who came before him, it just brings a good perspective to the fan that may not know it before hearing him talk about it. We are going to switch gears now. We're going to go to a little segment called What We Learned. We learned, presented by Binghamton University. Binghamton University was named the top school in the SUNY system according to recent rankings from the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. Visit binghamton.edu for more. Monica, Mitchell Robinson, he's been back for a little bit now. We saw him on the floor a decent amount against Boston. What did you make of? I thought he played really well last night, but what do you make of his play so far and the progress that you're seeing or not seeing?
Super proud of Mitch. Injuries are hard, especially foot injuries, especially a big guy. I mean, think about it. Last year when he got hurt, the momentum was up. He was rolling, right? Then in the playoffs, he's getting back to form, rolling. Like, he's gotten, unfortunately, injured when I think he was prepared to start playing his best basketball. So I'm incredibly proud of his focus, his maturity in terms of getting back this year. I thought that he looked great last night. There was a couple times defending that pick and roll where he's just using his length, moving his feet. Like, there was a time I think he got stuck out on the perimeter. Yeah, blocked Jason Tatum, I think. Was it Tatum? Yeah, I think it was Tatum on the wing.
He got Tatum.
But again, like, Mitchell Robinson's opportunity to grow as a basketball player and a man has made a difference, right? Like, sometimes you just got to stick with the guy long enough to give them a chance to grow. And Tibbs says that all the time. One of the best things about young players is that they have the opportunity to grow. And so, I sort of joked in years past, like, dude, can you stay off the floor? He's done that. I just think his arc as an NBA player, we are approaching what I see could probably be his prime years if he stays healthy.
Yeah. I mean, he's dealt with so much. And I was always saying in the offseason where I thought maybe if the right deal came along, the Knicks would talk about Robinson and trade talks. I kept saying, I think he deserves a chance to play with this team, which is the most talented Knicks team that he would have been on. And I'm glad he's getting that chance because he's been there at the bottom with everybody. And I'm very happy for him. And I want to talk about another injured Knick who's back now, Jalen Brunson. Brunson been back for 2 games. To me, last night against Boston, he looked like Jalen Brunson. And so it seems like it's a good path so far for him to get to the playoffs here. How tough is it when you miss a month in the middle of the season?
No fun. It's no fun. I tend to lean optimistic. So if I had to go glass half full on this one, it's the opportunity to rest, right? One thing about Jalen Brunson and his commitment to the game cannot be questioned. You know, he was busting his ass to get back on the floor. He's back on the floor. He's going to continue to work to be at the best version of himself and to have this team playing their best version as you head into the playoffs. He is just so tireless about his preparation. And so I thought last night he looked really good. I thought last night was a good showing for the entire team. I understand the result, but I thought that was a really good showing from the entire team. And Begley, that's just his second game back, right? Like, there's still more rhythm to come in terms of being used to being back on the floor, having missed a month, right? Yeah, a little over a month.
Yep.
So yeah, Jalen Brunson, I can't wait I can't wait because I don't want to rush him. I want to enjoy every moment of the career ahead. But the book, the TED Talk after the fact, the conversations on leadership, like the basketball is what it is, and he's dedicated and loves the game. But I think there are 10 to 8 to 10 guys in the league that really get it from the soft skills standpoint. Can you combine that with their competitive drive? Like those are the stories that I'm looking forward to being told down the road. And I definitely think Jalen Brunson is one of those guys. Not to mention, probably should be your clutch player of the year. So don't get it twisted. An absolute dog on the court with the rock, of course. Right. But I do think I'm always fascinated in the interpersonal skills that come into play in the game.
Yeah, well, we know where you're voting for clutch player of the year, and he's definitely had his moments. Monica, we're going to wrap here because I've taken up enough of your time. The rest versus playing the rest of the season, rest of these games. So Tom Thibodeau had said for 2 games straight that we're not going to change anything. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep with what we've got, what has gotten us here. We're going to continue with that, continue to play guys. Now, Knicks announcing that I believe it's OG Anunoby out, Josh Hart out, and Mitch out tomorrow. So it appears that either I misread my Thibodeau decoder or something has changed here, and the guys are going to be resting. So, I should say this too. I don't think this is the only rest period for regular players. I think there's going to be other guys resting in the games ahead. So this is not just a one and done. Your thoughts on that approach?
You and I, we're chatting on Wednesday. This morning, Mad Dog went off about Cleveland not playing their starters versus the Bulls the other day. So I think it's a thing around the league right now. What is unique though is, and you check me on this, Begley, because I know you're on top of it. I don't think the Knicks seeding can change.
They could still get down to 4, but they would have to lose out, and Indiana would have to win out.
Okay, well, between 3 and 4, like, you know what I mean? And it's funny. On the pod, we talked about the NBA calendar, and Melo and Rudy were both like, this could be a nasty time of year on the NBA calendar because some of the lineups that roll out, you're just kind of like, what's happening? Now, that's not the case in the Western Conference where everything is going to matter. But I trust head coach Tom Thibodeau at this point. He's been doing this for a long time. One of the gripes amongst fans is about minutes, obviously. Although, don't get me on my high horse about that. I disagree with it largely. But if there's opportunity to rest guys, I don't take an issue with it at this point in the season, understanding what is ahead.
The interesting thing to me too, Monica, is let's say Indiana wins out, Knicks lose out, and then the Knicks in the second round would be looking at Cleveland instead of Boston. You could have a debate about which is the better matchup, but I don't think anybody over there would complain about seeing Cleveland instead of the Celtics. So just something to keep an eye out as we wrap the end of the season. Obviously, we're always keeping an eye on you. We really appreciate your time and your insight, Monica McNutt, MSG Networks, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, ESPN, all levels of basketball analyst, does a fantastic job. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Begley.